and then theticketfm.com. Get ready for the student section with Big Sky.
I ordered a cinnamon melt. Get to the window, get my food. It's 2 cinnamon rolls. I don't need 2 cinnamon rolls.
And Nick Sainert.
People were chucking like those little Hostess donuts. People were using their game day signs that they made as shields. It was awesome.
On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Good morning and welcome into the student section.
What's up, Big Sky? How's it going?
Good morning and welcome. I'm doing well. How are you?
Not too bad. We're dealing with a little bit of an echo here.
What's not muted?
Everything is muted.
All right. Well, let's just keep going and see if we can power through the echo or not.
All right, let's try it.
All right. All right. So I'm coming to you from the Big Sky country. I'm up in Montana for a family event, so we're trying to figure out how to do the show over Zoom. Nick's still in Lincoln though, so hopefully we can figure it out. He's at the station, and we're gonna hope to deliver the same high level content for you guys today. Today on the student section, we're going to be talking about the College World Series, college football playoff expansion, and all the high level recruiting that Fred Hoiberg is doing at Nebraska. Nick, how will you take us into the College World Series a little bit?
Yeah, first of all, there's a little bit of an echo. If you guys can hear that on the stream or over the air, please let us know. As always, 402-464-5685. Starter Heyman text line is open for you. Now, I want to go back to yesterday. The amount of sports that were playing, it was awesome because the College World Series was going on, and you had a great game between NC State and Stanford. NC State was able to take game one of the College World Series there at 1 o'clock. They came out swinging. Then when you go to transition to the night game between Arizona and Vanderbilt, that was a thriller. And it was a lot of fun to be able to go from the Milwaukee Bucks, your Milwaukee Bucks, Big Sky, against the Brooklyn Nets in Game 7 that was filled with a ton of great moments. Kevin Durant hitting that long two at the buzzer, or close to the buzzer in regulation, and then obviously in overtime. The Bucks were able to outscore. I believe the score in overtime was like 4-2. Is that correct? It was very low scoring overtime.
Yes, I was watching the end of that game, and I was absolutely terrified the entire time. I watched the last 8 minutes, and the Bucks went on an 8-0 run to tie it up, and I had very low confidence in the Bucks to win the game. Chris Middleton was playing exceptionally poor. Drew Holiday was having a terrible game, and both those guys had clutch shots and made some very clutch defensive plays at the end of the game. And so I was sitting there, biting my fingernails, wringing my hands. I thought for sure it was over. And then KD gets the ball with 6 seconds left, and I'm shaking. And he hits that turnaround shot, and I thought it was a three-pointer at first. And I just sunk in my chair, and I bent over, and I had my hands on the ground. And then I look back up, and I see him put 2 points on the board. I was like, "There's no way." They show the replay, and he's got his feet on the line. I was ecstatic, still no confidence going into overtime. Then they get into overtime and they don't score for the first 3.5 minutes. That was an insane game. I can't believe the Bucks pulled it out.
Yeah, so we're hearing about there is that echo there. I muted myself on Zoom, so let us know on the text line if it's better, please. We're still trying to figure out this Starter Heyman video stream. We're Big Sky, if you're just now joining us, is from Montana. But going back to yesterday with it was fun to go from the Bucks Nets game back to the College World Series, and I think I joined in on the College World Series at the top of the 11th inning when the game was over, and you still got an inning and a half of action there. Vanderbilt ended up winning it 7-6. Same thing as what kind of hurt Nebraska in their regional play was walks and errors. It was walks and errors. There was guys on the mound for Arizona. They were just losing control of the fastball. They were not finishing downhill, so all their pitches were going up. And so just stuff like that, those mental, or not mental, but those little mistakes that you can make that can change an outcome of a game. And you're on the biggest stage possible, the College World Series, the greatest show on dirt. And that's what lost Arizona the game. And Vanderbilt's a heck of a team. And now we got two more great games today. I believe Texas and Tennessee, Mississippi State, I think they're all playing today at 1 o'clock and 6 o'clock, same times as well. So a lot of good things happening today. Big Sky, how is Montana, man? Are you dealing with any bears? What's going on there? On the Revolution before our show kicked off, they were talking about some bear talk. And so I thought, you know what better way to start off the show than talking about bears and baseball?
Well, I can't say that there's any bears on my side of Montana, so I would caution anyone against thinking that there's bears all across Montana. I'm in the flatlands part, so no trees, no mountains or anything like that. You have to drive about 5 hours to get to mountains. So no bears in Montana, but we're having a good party for my dad's 50th anniversary at his business. The family business has been going for 50 years. And so that's been a good time. A lot of people I haven't seen in a while came down, so that was fun. But getting to the College World Series thing, I did see that NC State had made it to the CWS. Mm-hmm. And, that's a team that Arkansas beat 21-2 in the first game of that super regional. And you have to expect that if Nebraska can compete with Arkansas, they would have been able to compete with North Carolina State. And so as a Husker baseball fan, Nick, I want to ask you, do you feel like this might have been the one that got away for Husker baseball?
No, because looking back and obviously having time to look back on and reflect on the season, Nebraska baseball was kind of handed a tough draw. I think we can all agree on that. They didn't shy away from it. They played Arizona to the brim. They took the number one team to the country as far as possible in the regional. There's nothing you can be mad or disappointed about. Obviously, you want to win, but they're the number one team in the country for a reason. There's a lot of question and doubt about Kevin Kopp starting their last game of the super regional against NC State, when he hasn't pitched 9 innings all year long. And so there was a lot of talk about that. There was a lot of talk about the pitch count, him having 118 pitches is when he gave up the go-ahead home run to NC State. I believe Jose Torres, their freshman shortstop, was the one that hit it in the super regional. Well, the guy's a dude, okay? There's no denying that. He's a dude. He's the best pitcher in the world, in the country. He's going to win the Golden Spikes Award more than likely. And so you can't argue with Dave Van Horn, and you're not going to sit here and tell me that Dave Van Horn doesn't know baseball. And so there's that way to look at it. But then also, like you said, with Nebraska, relating it to Nebraska, you can't be disappointed when it's in Will Bolt's first full year regarding all the circumstances with a conference-only schedule, with all the other circumstances that were out of their control, all the adversity that they had to face. They pushed the number one team to the country, or in the country, to the brim. And so great performance by Nebraska baseball. And I think it was more on Arkansas. They let NC State get the best of them instead of Nebraska losing an opportunity there.
Kind of like the Bo Pelini Huskers in football, just kind of seem to always let other teams get the best of them and not go and take the game and just grab what is theirs. I can relate to an Arkansas fan now, I guess, since you put it in easier terms to understand, since I'm not a baseball guy. But yeah, I mean, as a Husker fan, looking at the scores of those baseball games in the super regional and seeing how close Nebraska was pushing Arkansas to the brink, as you said, I kind of felt like we had a real shot to play a couple games in Omaha this year. And if
so we would
I'm disappointed by it.
Yeah, and if we would have played a couple games in Omaha, we would have actually played yesterday at 1 p.m. against Stanford. If we would have been able to top NC State in the supers, we would have played them at 1 p.m. yesterday, and it would have been a sold out crowd. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind or anybody's mind that Nebraska fans are going to travel to Omaha, especially when it's just 45 minutes down the road. And so I'm not afraid to say that they'll get there eventually, because there's a lot of promise going on right now in the Husker baseball program, and it's hard not to be excited about this Nebraska baseball program. Yeah,
I mean, again, we saw routinely that they have the they have everything going in the right direction. So I'm excited for Husker baseball. I'm probably going to watch more games than I did this last year coming up. So, and we have guys like Drew Christo, who we've interviewed on the team coming up. So it's going to be something incredibly interesting to watch.
Well, it'll be interesting here in the next couple of weeks with guys like Drew Christo and Chase Mason, who's a top 75 recruit out of South Dakota. They're going to have a chance to get their name called here in next month's draft. And so they're going to have, it's going to be interesting to keep tabs on them to see what their decision is. I at the end of the day, I think they both come to Nebraska. However, it's going to be interesting, and Husker fans may be on pins and needles here when they do hear their name called, because it's not going to be, it's like in the 15th round. It will be top 10 rounds. You're going to hear these two guys' names called.
Do you think there's a certain cutoff that these guys have set? Kind of like, if I get picked before this round, I'll go pro. If I get picked after this round, I'm going to go to college.
I feel like, and obviously I've never been in this position, I feel like it would be something around the lines of, you tell yourself something, hey, if I get picked before this round, this is where I'll go. But then, if you get 2 rounds later and it's like, man, I have a chance to play in the pros right now. I have a chance. So there's obviously a tough decision there, and it's going to be hard for them. Obviously, they have to talk to scouts, they have to talk to coaches, they do all that. So I'm not sure necessarily there's a line that's set in the ground where it's like, yeah, if I'm picked before this round, I'm going pro, or if I'm picked after it, I'm going to college. I don't think there's that. I think it's depends on the fit, depends on what they're hearing from scouts, what they're hearing from their coaching staff, Nebraska coaches, what they're telling their recruits. Stuff like that. I think there's a lot of factors that we can't even begin to imagine, and how difficult this decision will be for them next month.
Well, Husker fans will be waiting with bated breath during the MLB draft to see where those guys get their names called for sure. Let's shift over to a little bit of Husker football recruiting. We are excited about the baseball team. Hopefully we can get excited about these 2 commits that we got recently. Richard Torres, the 6'5", he specified to Lincoln Riders. He's 6'5", quarterback out of San Antonio, Texas. And then Ashton Hayes, the 5'10", 180-pound running back from Reno, Nevada. Both of these guys have one specific thing that makes them interesting takes. Ashton Hayes is an incredibly fast running back, but he's not a big running back. Richard Torres, incredibly raw quarterback, but a giant arm. Nick, when you saw that Torres committed, were you excited? Did you know he was on the Huskers radar? Where were you at with that commit?
Well, I feel like I was excited, obviously, because I said last week that I am worried about recruiting for Nebraska football. I said that last week, and I'm not saying that this makes me go back on that statement. I'm still worried because obviously we're not getting higher level talent, but we are getting our guys. Richard Torres has been on the Huskers board ever since the beginning. One thing that does worry me, he is raw, and the staff has shown a lack of ability to develop to this point. And so I do worry about that to an extent. However, it is fun to see the big arm. One thing I did notice is that he really lets the play develop, like almost to a point where it's too much, if that makes sense, where he waits until guys are too open. That's one thing. And so that's just going to come with timing and get to know his receivers. His film, like you said, there were some big throws there that on the back end of those throws where the receivers were, they just dropped the pass. So it didn't look as good as it could have been. So from a talent and excitement perspective, I'm excited because he's a 3-star, I'm not worried about that. However, from the angle that he's raw and that he's going to need a lot of developing, he's not going to need to put on some weight, that's where I kind of worry, because this staff, we saw it with Adrian Martinez. They put weight on him, but then they put too much on him. And so now
hold up. He put on a weight, and he was very much so a running quarterback. They were utilizing him a lot as a runner, and we saw the effects of that extra weight as a running quarterback. Richard Torres is not known so much for his legs. So I don't think that adding weight's going to be as big a deal for Richard Torres, because they're bringing him in as a quarterback, as a passer first. That's the impression I get. So I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue that they're going to be putting weight on him and maybe making him lose a step running the football.
Does it worry you that at all that he's raw? Do you like the fact that he's going to need a lot of fine tuning?
I am incredibly concerned because we have not seen Mario Verduzco and Scott Frost develop a quarterback in Nebraska, but we can kind of rest easy, I'd say, looking at the quarterback development they did at other schools.
What other
Nebraska,
schools,
Adrian
though,
Martinez
Big
is
Sky?
basically the only quarterback we've seen.
What, like, are we going off of Mackenzie Milton and Marcus Mariota? Is that
A
what we're
little
going?
bit. Those are the guys we have to look at. We can't take the apparent lack of development that we've seen out of Adrian and apply it to every quarterback that these guys are going to touch, because Adrian isn't the only one that they've tried to develop, and they've been successful every other time. Mackenzie Milton turned into a great quarterback. I think there's a lot of people in Nebraska that think Noah Vedril's a better quarterback than Adrian Martinez, and that was a Scott Frost guy that he developed. Mario Verduzco developed that guy. And then obviously Marcus Mariota, a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback out of Oregon. Scott Frost has his DNA, his fingerprints all over that guy. We need to quit freaking out because one quarterback didn't work out in our eyes. And again, Adrian Martinez is a guy that I like. I can't deny that there has been no noticeable development, but I still think that Adrian's a good quarterback and that this staff is capable of developing quarterbacks. So am I a little concerned that Adrian hasn't developed? Yes. Do I still have confidence that Richard Torres can become a great quarterback? Absolutely.
I think my opinion on this is that to this point at Nebraska in their current situation, they have yet to show that they can develop. So obviously you look past, but okay, if we're going to look at their past jobs, Scott Frost as an offensive coordinator at Oregon was phenomenal. He had guys, DeAnthony Thomas, he had Marcus Mariota, obviously. He talked about at the Big Red Blitz how he recruited Justin Herbert, so that's a big story. That's a big recruiting pitch that they have is, hey, we recruited Justin Herbert, we recruited Marcus Mariota, Mackenzie Milton, we've done all that. However, in their current situation, that's what I'm trying to look at when I'm trying to assess my thoughts, is because we haven't seen it anything that's worked at previous stops work at Nebraska.
Well, we've also seen an evolution of the college football game. So I think there's been a bit of an adjustment period for Scott Frost, not only adjusting to a more physical conference in the Big Ten, but also just the changing landscape of college football. What worked at Oregon worked at UCF because he wasn't against these physical maniacs that we get in the Big Ten. Then he shows up in the Big Ten. College football's had more time to adapt to that Oregon spread offense. And so now people are better equipped to stop him schematically. And then on top of that, they have better athletes, bigger bodies, more physical guys in the Big Ten. It was the perfect storm for Scott Frost to just get a blindside hit. His left tackle totally missed the defensive end coming off the edge, and Scott Frost is on the ground with the wind knocked out of him right now. He's going. I think the staff can get back up, catch their breath again, and get going again. They've got the guys in place now. They can be successful. They have the wide receivers. They're getting the offensive linemen. They're getting big guys. Every position is getting big guys. This is a Big Ten roster now, and I have confidence the staff can lead them to more success in the Big Ten.
Okay, let me ask you this. Since they recruited Torres as more of a thrower, are you thinking they're trying to shift the way that they're recruiting quarterbacks especially, and transitioning from a running quarterback, dare I say Luke McCaffrey-esque, where he's more of a runner and just an athlete than a passer, towards a more of a not necessarily pro-style quarterback, but one that has a better arm over his feet?
I think there's been a clear shift in the philosophy on quarterback recruiting. I believe they saw in Adrian Martinez, he's just 6'2", 210, how difficult it can be for a smaller quarterback to stay healthy in the Big Ten. And then you look at guys like Alex Hornibrook, Jack Cohn, Clayton Thorson. Those are all big guys. Spencer Petras is a big quarterback. He's just a lumbering guy. They're kind of like Ben Roethlisberger almost. They don't struggle with injury. And then you have a small guy like Adrian Martinez go out and get hurt his first 2 years. If I'm a coach, I'm looking at that and saying, if we're a healthy quarterback away from success, I need to get a quarterback that can stay healthy. And I think if you look at Luke McCaffrey, you were constantly terrified for that guy to get hit when he was playing quarterback. You would hold your breath if you saw a free blitzer coming off the edge. And if the fans are seeing that, you got to imagine that Scott Frost is feeling the same way a little bit as well, because he sees these guys in practice. He knows what they are. I think that it was a clear shift to look for a quarterback that can throw the downfield pass in the cold snow and the wind. And I think it was a clear shift towards a quarterback that can stay healthy and take more hits.
Now let's transition to college football as a whole, because we said it's shift. One thing that they are changing is the college football playoff to 12 teams. How do you feel about 12? Let's just get our initial thoughts out there. What's your initial thought about the college football playoff moving to 12 teams?
I absolutely love this new format with the 6 highest rated conference champions, because it finally gives one group of 5 team will make it in every year. That's guaranteed. It's a very high likelihood that you could get 2 if you get 2 conference champions that are ranked higher than, say, 2 Power 5. If you get 2 Power 5 upsets, there's a good chance you could get multiple group of 5 teams in. And so just the fact that group of 5 can finally compete again, it's automatically a win for me. But on top of that, I look at a team that I really like with a coach I really like, Luke Fickell in Cincinnati. If anyone listens to Early Break, they know that I've been championing the Bearcats since the midseason. I'm a big fan of that program. They would have gotten in this year and they would have had a chance to compete for a national championship. And I think they would have won their first game. And I think they would have pushed anyone they played in their second game. We saw them push Georgia, and Georgia was capable of competing with Alabama just fine, Florida just fine this year. So the fact that there's no longer this imaginary cutoff completely blocking group of 5 teams from making it in, it's perfect. I like that there's the automatic bids for conference champions and that they didn't specify that they're Power 5 conference champions. I can't find a problem with this expansion plan.
Do you think it should have been 8? Because Bill Moose has been an advocate for 8. Scott Frost has been an advocate for 8. A lot of coaches are advocates of 8. Do you think 12 is too much?
I do not think 12 is too much. I love college football, and we're going to get more games out of it, so I can't complain there. I'm not really quite sure where 12 came from, because I had not heard it before. It was always 4, 8, or 16, and then they come out with 12. But the more I look at the 12 format and the more I go back and look at old years and see what teams would have been in the 12-team playoff, I see that team that's the 12th seed. I go, it's usually a group of 5 team that didn't get a chance. 2017, Scott Frost at UCF, they would have been that 12 seed team. I look at that and it's like, okay, yeah, that's the perfect team to be the 12 seed. So I don't think you need to add 16, and 8 would have cut them off again. So this 12-team playoff is perfect for including group of 5 teams and giving enough Power 5 teams a chance to get rid of a bad loss, I guess. You look at a team like Alabama who can lose to Auburn a couple in the Iron Bowl. It's a legit rivalry, and Auburn competes with them. If Alabama drops a game, at say they're number 4, they've already lost one game, they drop a game to Auburn in the Iron Bowl, but they still go to the big SEC championship game, that team's not going to be eliminated from the playoff. Or say Auburn goes into the SEC championship instead, Alabama could still be the number 1 team with 2 losses, but a 4-team playoff would have iced them out of the conversation altogether. Now they get dropped to 10, and they just have to prove it a little bit more. And when you look at that these top or these wild card teams are having to prove themselves, you can get rid of any doubt that they're the best team if they go out and win, because they're winning 3 games against teams you claim are some of the best in the country. So I don't think there'll be any doubt about the champion going forward.
One last question before we get to break here. Are you worried that it may be SEC heavy? Are you worried that a playoff could potentially involve too many SEC teams over other?
Well, if you look at the SEC, I'd say they never have more than 4 teams at the top there that really have a claim at the top 12. The committee that chooses the playoff teams loves the SEC, so I'm sure we'll see plenty of SEC bias. Mm-hmm. It's going to be there no matter what we do. If it's 4 teams, there's going to be SEC bias. There's going to be a chance that there's 3 SEC teams and 1 Power 5 team. With the 12-team playoff, you're guaranteed to have at least 5 non-SEC teams. So any given year, at least 40-ish% of the teams are not going to be SEC teams. That's a much better number than in any given year you could have 25%, one fourth of the playoff being non-SEC teams. So I'm much more confident that we will see a geographic expansion of the playoffs. It's no longer going to be isolated to the Southeast, South Carolina, Alabama, with Clemson always in the national championship. This will be a way to get teams west of the Mississippi back into college football. USC would have probably made a playoff by now, multiple playoffs by now. Washington would have made a couple of playoffs other than the one that they had already made. Mm-hmm. So this is going to be a way to get more fans involved in the playoff. And whenever you have more fans involved, that's never a bad thing. It's going to be great for the business side of the sport. And as a fan, it's going to be great. It's going to be a great watch. So I'm super excited for the 12-team playoff whenever it goes into effect.
Perfect. So Big Sky, big fan of the 12-team playoff. When we come back here on the student section, we will dive into some Husker basketball talk. Fred Hoiberg was out on the Big Red Blitz. We'll talk about some incoming guys that are on campus, all that and more coming up next on the student section.
Want more Big Sky and Nick? Follow them on Twitter at Radio Big Sky and Nick_Sainer. More of the student section next on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Hi, Sean Callahan here of HuskerOnline.com, inviting you to join us here on 93.7 The Ticket every Saturday morning now in our new time. We're on from 8 to 9 with the weekly Husker Online radio show. We'll give you the latest in recruiting. We'll talk about what's going on with both football, basketball, and we'll probably share a few stories from the inside. It's every Saturday morning right here on 93.7 The Ticket. It's the Husker Online radio show from 8 to 9 a.m.
Landmark Implement, your local John Deere dealership, is searching for mechanics of all skill levels to grow with us. Landmark offers a competitive wage, full benefits package, along with paid time off within just 60 days of employment, as well as a 401k and a boot and clothing allowance. Interested in becoming a part of the Landmark difference? Apply now at landmarkimp.com/careers or contact Deanna 402-310-7561 or email careers@landmarkimp.com. That's landmarkimp.com. Landmark Implement is an equal opportunity employer.
The Drive with Connor Happer and Ravi Lula.
How intense are the hard feelings toward Arizona State? Kevin Mawe put out a Bible verse that hinted that ASU's compliance what's that word? Comeuppance? Comeuppance. I don't say that word.
Weekdays from 3 to 6 on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Summer is an excellent time to keep the learning going with your child. I'm Jenny Benson, president of the Nebraska State Education Association. Sure, summer break is full of fun for kids, but it's also important to set aside time for them to read each day. It's also a great time to focus on specific skills. It's time well spent that will pay off when school starts back this fall. Sponsored by the Nebraska State Education Association, aired in cooperation with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
The DP and Stevens Show.
Nebraska's Director of Player Development, Buzzy Carruthers, is our guest.
A geographic expansion of the playoffs. No longer be isolated to the Southeast, South Carolina, Alabama.
We let those guys get to see the locker room, the practice facility, and then they get to tour the facility. I've been to a lot of schools. I like to tell people that have not been here, it's sort of like an Olympic facility. All of these
too many SEC teams.
Weekdays from 11 to 2 on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Now back to the student section with Big Sky and Nick Sainert.
Welcome back into the student section.
Welcome back into the student section. Nick Sainert here. Big Sky on the other side out in Montana. We're going to dive into some Husker basketball discussion here with just in regards to their recruiting and their kind of approach on this season. Fred Hoiberg talked about how he's super excited for what's to come. He's looking ahead at the schedule, and he's very excited for the future of this program, and it's hard not to be. Now, Wilhelm Bredenbach, he is on campus. Now, he had a little bit of an injury with his knee back in high school. And so Fred was asked about whether or not he would be ready to go for the season, what his status was, will he need surgery, all of that. And they said in good light, hey, we're happy with the rehab right now. We're excited where Wilhelm's at, and the future looks bright. He's going to be ready for the season. He's not going to need surgery to this point. Now, we know about this incoming class for Nebraska basketball. We know about Bryce McGowan's the first 5-star in Husker basketball history. Wilhelm Bredenbach, which we just mentioned. Ole Koenetz and Keishi Tominaga. They're not on campus quite yet, but they're going to get there. And Tominaga is going to have a lot of fun on campus. He's going to be a fan favorite. He will be someone similar and probably an elevated guy of a Thorbjorn Larson. And so obviously Nebraska, like always, big in the transfer game with CJ Wilcher and Keon Edwards. And they're still freshmen because their last year didn't count. And so there's a lot of excitement around this Husker program. Now, they're also bringing in a lot of big name guys for recruiting. The level of confidence that I have in this Husker basketball program is huge. I know where this program is going to go. I'm not afraid to say, as we have some technical difficulties with Big Sky, so you're going to get a load of me here this segment. I'm not afraid to say that this program is in the right direction. We know where this is going because we go back to talking before in previous weeks about transparency between programs and from coaches. And it's not just what we're hearing. It's if you listen to any of the other ticket shows, on the DP and Stevens show, that when they talk to Buzzy Carruthers every week, or they talk to Matt Abdelmassi, the excitement that this coaching staff has about the talent that they're bringing in is huge. And it should be, because they're bringing in 5-stars every single weekend now. And I don't know if you were listening during the commercial break there, but on the promo, it talks about Buzzy Carruthers. When they bring in guys for official visits, they have 48 hours. And then they basically tell them, hey, this is like an Olympic facility. These are top-notch facilities, and it's only getting better because you're going to have all the resources needed at Nebraska. Now, one thing we forgot to mention, switching back to football real quick, is in regards to football recruiting, when we were talking about the commits, they had a visit this week from James Mons, who's a 4-star defensive back. He's related to Wander Mons, former Husker footballer as well, so there's a little bit of a legacy there. He seems like he had a great visit. Friday, he got here Friday morning. There was a barbecue. There was something that recruits can go in and talk to colleges inside before their Friday Night Lights camp. They can talk to colleges, learn more about the academics. That gives some comfort to parents. Now, James Mons tweeted out yesterday, Husker Nation, I got something for y'all tomorrow. And so that's something that I'm watching right now. I'm waiting to see who knows what it is. I'm not saying read into it too much. I'm not saying it's a commitment. But as a Husker fan, you have to think that something good is about to come for Husker Nation when a 4-star defensive back, James Mons, is saying, Husker Nation, tomorrow I got something for y'all. And so that's one thing that I might have to break into here in a heartbeat. So if we switch directions, you guys know why. There's a little bit of a backstory there. So back to Husker basketball, though. Obviously, they're in on Isaac Trout, the guy from Grand Island. They're in on this guy named Trey Holloman. He's the 52nd best player in the country. They had a guy named Omaha come in. How do you not get excited about that? I'm trying to contain my excitement because things are trending up and we know what this staff can do. And so things like that is what gives you encouragement for the season. And if you haven't heard Abdelmassi speak and the chemistry between their coaching staff, between Abdelmassi and Luca Virgilio and Buzzy Carruthers, please go back and listen. Listen to what they were saying on the Big Red Blitz, because they're excited about the direction that this thing is going. Now, this is where I want to open it up to you guys. Please text in, Starter Heyman text line 402-464-5685. Call or text, both lines are open. What are your thoughts about this Husker basketball team? What are your opinions? What are you expecting this season to look like? It's going to look a little normal. We'll have fans. Husker or Bill Moose has already said it's going to be full capacity this year. I want to know what you guys are expecting this season to look like. And while you guys get your texts in, we'll revisit that here shortly. And we're going to go back to football because during the Big Red Blitz this last week, Bill Moose had a comment about the schedule. And he said something about, we have Michigan and Ohio State at home, albeit they're at home, but this is a very tough schedule. And this is the best team we've had in Scott Frost's tenure. And so when I hear that, I wonder, when are we going to see this Scott Frost team make a jump? What if this is the year that they go 8 wins? What's that going to do for this city? And so we're going to take a break here. We're going to try to get Big Sky back in here because I know he has many thoughts on this. But I want you guys to think about that over the break. And we're going to get back to this here shortly. And so keep it right here. 93.7 The Ticket student section will be right back here shortly.
More of the student section next on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Summer is an excellent time to keep the learning going with your child. I'm Jenny Benson, president of the Nebraska State Education Association. Sure, summer break is full of fun for kids, but it's also important to set aside time for them to read each day. It's also a great time to focus on specific skills. It's time well spent that will pay off when school starts back this fall. Sponsored by the Nebraska State Education Association, aired in cooperation with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them?
By their clothes,
their age,
hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungeratAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America, 200 Food Bank Strong, and the Ad Council.
There are fans, and then there's you. You live it. You breathe it. You want to soak it all in. Most sports talk shows are fine, but you find yourself craving more. You need the Recruiting Hour with Mike Schaefer and Connor Happer. Each day, we break down what's happening on the recruiting trail and on campus, bringing you guests from all corners of the college football world. The Recruiting Hour with Mike Schaefer and Connor Happer. Weekdays at 2 p.m. on 93.7 The Ticket and the Ticket FM.
I sent it on.
Hey, Nebraska. Grant Wistrom here to remind you to stay in the game. Seatbelts have been proven to be one of the best way to save your life in a crash, yet many Nebraskans still don't buckle up. Worse yet, not wearing a seatbelt is a habit that will pass on to our impressionable youth, who will then think it's safe to not buckle up. Whether you're traveling near or far, it's always important to buckle up. Car crashes can happen anytime, anywhere, to anyone. Your best defense is your seatbelt. We need everyone to buckle up every time. We need you to stay in the game.
The Drive with Connor Happer and Robbie Lula.
How intense are the hard feelings toward Arizona State? Kevin Mawe put out a Bible verse that hinted that ASU's compliance.
772.
What's that word? Comeuppance. I don't say that word.
Weekdays from 3 to 6 on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Video hopefully take down the latency.
You got me! The galaxy is safe once again.
All right, I'll let you in.
In the pretend universe, kids play with pretend guns. In the real world, it's up to us to make sure they don't get their hands on a real gun. If you have a gun in the house, keep it locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
All right.
Can I go to the sleepover?
If there's any drinking, I want you to say, no thanks, not my thing.
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Sponsored by DHHS and aired in cooperation with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Dad, I picked up your pills, made your lunch, and your laundry is done.
When you care for a loved one, you take care of everything. But are you taking care of yourself? Find free care guides at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Long ago, you wouldn't think of galloping on a horse while doing calligraphy. And you wouldn't have attempted to ride your bike while typing a letter. Yet you think you can safely operate a multi-ton vehicle while texting? Behind the wheel is no place to multitask. If you want to BRB, drive now and text later. Lives depend on it.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
What is dedication?
The thing that drives me every day as a dad is Dariana. We call him Day for short. Every day he's hungry for something, whether it's attention, affection, knowledge. And there's this huge responsibility in making sure that when he's no longer under my wing, that he's a good person. I want him to be able to sit back one day and go, we worked together, we did a good job.
That's dedication. Find out more at fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Just like football, hunting is one of Nebraska's great pastimes. Some of my fondest memories are being in the field hunting with my family and my dog. It's important we help pass on outdoor traditions like hunting and fishing because these activities fund conservation of our fish and wildlife. I encourage you to introduce someone new to hunting. Not only is it time well spent, but if you take a picture and share it, you can win a Sport UTV or other great prizes. Let's take them hunting. Learn more by going to outdoornebraska.org.
Paid for by Nebraska Game and Parks.
Now back to the student section with Big Sky and Nick Sainert.
Welcome back into the student section. Hopefully you can hear me now on the radio and live stream. Dropped out. We lost connection on the Zoom call, so we were trying to do it via our streaming service, and it just didn't work out for us. But I do have a lot of hot takes on Nebraska ball. But before we get to my opinion, Kevin in Southwest Lincoln drops in on the text line and says NIT minimum for Fred Hoiberg this season. Is that a little too much to ask out of a program that has never won a postseason game in the NCAA tournament to ask them to go to the next best tournament? And I assume Kevin wants to see some wins in the NIT.
I don't think that's too much to ask, actually, especially with this.
He won. How many games did he win last year? 7.
Are we chalking any of that up to the circumstances?
I think it's still incredibly big thing to ask for him to essentially probably go above 500 in the Big Ten when he has 10 wins in the conference since he's gotten to Nebraska. I don't think that we should be asking NIT out of Fred Hoiberg next year. In 2 years, if we can keep all these guys in-house, keep Bryce, keep Wilhelm, I think NIT and probably the NCAA tournament are reasonable asks. I don't think that we should be expecting postseason success next year with a majority freshman brand new squad.
So what are your expectations for this upcoming year?
I'm expecting noticeable success, increased success.
Okay. What is that?
Winning the games you should in the non-conference.
Okay.
And doing better in conference.
So no losses to Incarnate Word or anything like that, right? Like you said, is that what we're going with? Is that
there were times last year
where
I would watch a game and it looked like they didn't know how to play basketball. I don't know how to play basketball. I'm not good at basketball, and I didn't grow up around the sport. But even to me, it looked like the other team was just running the floor and mopping the floor with Nebraska ball. And I would like to see a team look competent and compete with everybody in the Big Ten. They showed flashes last year. I'd like to see more of those. I'd like to see consistent success. I don't want to see scoreless droughts for 8 minutes in the second half against Indiana when you're right there in the game. I don't want to see Nebraska ball lose any games. I want to see them put their best foot forward every night. I want to see them compete. I want to see more wins, but I'm going to be all right not seeing any postseason this year.
Let me ask you this: who gets it turned around first, Frost or Hoiberg?
Absolutely Hoiberg.
Why?
Well, we already see the recruiting success. He's already recruiting at a high level. We don't see that out of Scott Frost. Scott Frost is recruiting at a high level. Don't get me wrong, and I said that last week. I like the recruiting out of Frost. He's taken football recruiting to its peak in the last 10 years. But Hoiberg to go out and get a 5-star with a terrible win percentage in his tenure at Nebraska is insane. So you have to think, as success increases, that recruiting is going to be bonkers. So I'm incredibly confident in Fred Hoiberg to get it turned around. I just don't think it's going to happen next year, but I think he already has the guys in-house to make it happen. I don't know if Frost does. I said last or 2 segments ago that they have the bodies now. I just am more confident in Fred Hoiberg, though.
All right, Big Sky, since you're here, let's put a number. What number of wins would you like to see out of this Husker basketball program that would make you feel good?
All wins or just conference wins?
All. Record at the end of the year.
I mean, I'd like to see double-digit wins. 10 to 15 wins would be a nice number to see, and I think that would make them somewhat competitive in the standings. They'd be around like 7 to 8 going into the Big Ten tournament if they get to like 14, 15 wins. And so I first, not having to play a game right out of the gate in the Big Ten tournament would be amazing.
Have
not
nice
having to play that play-in game
yeah,
that we seem constantly penciled
nice.
into.
Yes,
would be fantastic. So I'm going to say double-digit, low teens for the wins.
How much? So you have the ultimate trust that Hoiberg will turn this around.
Well, absolutely.
Okay, now let's transition to football. Let's talk about the schedule that I talked about at the end of the middle segment there about Bill Moose saying that, Michigan, Ohio State, he flat out said that they have a tough schedule. Obviously, Oklahoma. I look at this schedule, Big Sky, and I look at, okay, we open up with Illinois. That should be a win. It should be a win. That is the most important game on this schedule right now. That is absolutely the 100% most important game on the schedule. Because can you imagine what this town will be like if we lose to Illinois? It will not be fun. It will not. And so that is obviously but looking ahead, then you have Fordham, you have Buffalo. Okay. Please, we should beat Fordham. Then you have Oklahoma, which I think we all have our own opinions on how that's going to go. But then you go into conference play and you have Michigan State, Northwestern, your first 2 conference games. Michigan State, they are the definition of rebuilding right now. They stripped that program to the end, and they are rebuilding from the bottom up. And so I think that we should be able to beat them as well. So I'm looking at the schedule, and I think Nebraska is going to be a better team than Michigan. Obviously, Ohio State is Ohio State. So I look at the schedule, and I say, I don't see it being super difficult. However, I hope we're not looking past Illinois.
Well, as if you're familiar with Early Break, Jake Sorensen thinks that the Illinois game is the most important game on the Cornhuskers schedule. He thinks a loss in that game would spell disaster for the rest of the season for the team. I think fans would check out, but I don't think a week with 0 loss to Illinois is going to end the season for the team. I think they're still going to be able to go out and compete and perform how at whatever level they determine they are going to that week. I don't think it's going to just completely take the wind out of the sails of this Husker team, mainly because they've already experienced such a lack of success in Nebraska that wouldn't be anything out of the ordinary, which is really disgusting to say, but it is the case here in Nebraska right now. I also don't think that an Oklahoma beatdown would be demoralizing for this team because it's so far-fetched that they would win. Why are we going to take it so hard if we lose to Oklahoma? Because they're an old rival? None of these players remember that. I barely remember when we were a rival with Oklahoma. And I was a Husker fan. So these kids that weren't Husker fans growing up, they probably aren't familiar with the rivalry to the point that everyone here in Nebraska is. So I think we need to take it game by game. And if we string together a couple losses, that's going to be when it gets demoralizing. As for the toughness of the schedule, it's a tough schedule, Nick. It's a tough schedule.
Outside of Oklahoma and Ohio State, who do you think is going to be the toughest opponent that Nebraska plays? What do you see? Is it going to be a Wisconsin? Is it going to be an Iowa?
Wisconsin and Iowa are always solid. Those
Yeah,
teams,
but they're
they have
division
good coaches,
opponents
they have
that we're
a
always going.
culture.
It's going to be the same as like Northwestern. They're going to be. It's going to be a tough game. I'm not saying that they're not going to have tough games, but I look at the schedule and I see we should start 4-1.
You're underestimating the teams on our schedule. At Buffalo, they might have just lost Lance Leipold. He might have just gone to Kansas and they lost a couple of players. But I think there's a solid team culture there, and it's just the responsibility of the new coach to continue that momentum. They went to the Mid-American Conference Championship game last year and lost. They were the runners-up. You can't take any conference championship game runner-up for granted. Fordham, I think, is the only easy game on the schedule. Illinois beat us last year. They have a good defense. Brett Bielema is a good coach. He's a better coach than Lovie Smith is. So you can't look past Illinois. They are going to have a full offseason to get ready with Brett Bielema. Northwestern, Pat Fitzgerald is a great coach. I'm a big Fitzgerald fan. I think he's definitely a top 3 coach in the Big Ten. He's still there. They're bringing in a 5-star quarterback. That's going to be a tough game. I don't think Nebraska is going to beat Northwestern. Wisconsin, again, solid coach, solid roster, great culture. They're going to be good. Ohio State is Ohio State. Michigan has a bigger name and it's been recruiting at a higher level than Nebraska has. At this point, it's kind of like, can Harbaugh figure out the quarterback position and they're set. I don't like Nebraska against very many teams in the Big Ten right now. It would be tough for me to put money on Nebraska in any game in the Big Ten right now. It's a tough schedule.
So the only win that you're most outside of Fordham, what game are you most confident in?
Maybe Buffalo.
Okay, how about conference game?
I'm going to look at the schedule again to see. I'm really not confident in any conference game. I might go Illinois just because they are bringing in that new coach.
I truly think
Purdue. I'm going to go with Purdue. I'm most confident Nebraska can beat Purdue.
I truly think that if Nebraska starts the season 0-1 and has a horrible showing, obviously if they play well and Illinois just plays well, it's going to be like, okay, yeah, each team played well. Illinois is just the better team on that day. But if they go out and they have a horrible showing, I think it is going to start unraveling quick. Not because of this team, but just because of the pressure. And Scott Frost has begun to feel that pressure because just last week, he made a comment about, I should probably win. I just need to start winning. I need to start winning.
Was it a bad thing that he's feeling the pressure?
No, not at all. It's good. I'm glad he is.
I don't see why the Illinois game, if they lose, I don't think the fact that they lost will show us what we have in Frost. I think how they respond will show us what Nebraska has in Frost, because he's paid $5 million a year to be a leader. He's leading that program. And if they collapse after the Illinois loss, he's clearly not the guy going forward. How they respond to any loss is more telling than how he calls plays, how he gets the team ready for games. It's how they respond to losses and wins. If they can string together multiple wins, he's clearly a good coach because he's able to capitalize on momentum and lead his team with that momentum. And after losses, he's able to have a short memory and get his team ready for the next game and forget about the mistakes they made and get them focused on the next game. That's where his money's supposed to be made. We have not seen it at Nebraska yet. This is the season that's going to tell us what we have in Frost.
Why is this season? Okay, actually, let's ask it this way: what record will you? What record at the end of the season will need to be showing for this to be a good season? Is it a bowl?
I'm not going to put a number on it because we saw after a 4-8 season in 2018 there was a lot of hype around this team.
Mm-hmm.
They were in the top 25 preseason and completely unwarranted, but we felt really good about the team. They'd finished the season really strong. So I'm not going to put a number on it like, I need to see 6-6 to feel confident in Scott Frost going forward. And I don't think Nebraska should move on. I want to know how I feel after the season. I would need to, I could tell you after the last game, probably leading up to the last couple of games, where I'm at on that take, but it's impossible to put a number on it because 4-8 with Mike Riley in that last year felt significantly different than 4-8 the next season with Scott Frost.
Yeah.
With Riley, it felt like the sky was falling. With Frost, it felt like we were the champions of the world.
Well, and we still had that idea in our head that, it's the second year he's going to turn it around. It's going to be a 10-2 kind of season. It will be a 9-3 kind of season in year 2 because that's what he did at UCF. He turned it around in 2 years, and so that's where we still had that hype around him for his hire and for him just saying, we know what this coach did at UCF. Why can't he do it in Nebraska? And so let's ask this question because I'm interested to hear I was asked this question a couple weeks ago, and I'll repeat the same answer. But if Nebraska gets 8 wins this year, how did they get 8 wins? What contributed to them having a quote unquote successful season in terms of Nebraska football?
They were incredibly healthy. That they didn't suffer any key injuries. Adrian Martinez fixed his turnover issue, and they found a stud on offense, a wide receiver, running back, a guy that can take the pressure off Adrian. The offensive line was good, and the defense continued its solid play from last year. So I was at 4 things: health, an offensive stud, good offensive line, solid defensive play. So those 4 things need to happen for them to get to 8 wins.
Yeah, we've talked about it so many times before about that this offense just needs a running game. And that's what I said. I said that they have a 1,000-yard rusher. It will alleviate the pain off of Adrian, or the pressure off of Adrian if he has somebody that's next to him in the backfield that he can hand the football off to, excuse me. And also that'll contribute to the staying healthy aspect of your thought is he won't have to run. And so that's going to be huge for him to have somebody in the backfield that he can run the offense with, or also, like you said, throw the football to. And Omar Manning can be that guy. I saw him in the open practice. Folks saw him in the spring game. And he's that guy that he can go up and body a defensive back, and he can make it happen and even just get a catch. And that's something that this Nebraska football team has been missing. And so
it can be a running back, or it can be a great wide receiver. I don't care where the stud comes from, and I don't care if they get a 1,000-yard rusher out of 3 running backs combined for 1,000 yards. Yeah. If they find one guy on offense that can be a go-to guy other than Adrian Martinez, I think this offense is going to be much improved.
I do as well. Big Sky, before we go, your Bucks facing the
NBA champions.
The
They're going to be the NBA
and the
champions.
Hawks. Who do you think it's going to be in the next round, 76ers or Hawks?
Hawks, and the Bucks are going to destroy the Hawks in 5 games. Bucks NBA champions. Book it.
All right. Just a reminder, be on the lookout for the podcast on theticketfm.com. Sorry about the technical difficulties through the show. We'll be back in studio, and it'll be much better next week. Until next week, Big Sky, thank you. Have a great and happy Father's Day.